And welcome to Conservatives Talk. My name's Justin.
And this is Jamie. And we got a very, very special guest with us tonight. And you're going to want to stay tuned because it's almost a once-in-a-lifetime interview. We're going to interview her.
It's shoes on the other foot for once.
Yeah.
All right. So stick around and we'll be right back after this. And welcome back. As always, please like and share all the content that you run across that we put out there. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to continue to stay up to date with all the content that we produce. And if you are able, please go to our website that's on the screen right there with you. That's conservativestalk.org. And that's really to help Jamie and I to be able to produce more content and push it out.
Absolutely. And, as always, we always want to remind you that it's 24 days now until our Republican primary and 194 days until we beat Stacey Abrams again.
Absolutely. And as always, chills.
Yeah, feels good.
As you can see on the screen, we do have our guest.
Very special guest.
Absolutely. So many of you may recognize her. She was the one who broke the big Floyd Gate election board scandal, and what more call it that, because they lost 3,000 ballots.
Yeah, and that was big. I mean, it was we know our media outlets around here in Northwest Georgia would have never put anything out about it, and if it wasn't for Heather, then the nation would have never seen that everything that we've been telling them about the 2020 election was real.
Absolutely. So as Jamie mentioned, this is the one and the only Heather Mullins.
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. We were thrilled that we were able to get a national celebrity to come on our little mom and pop.
Absolutely.
Our little mom and pop show.
That's funny. No, it is pretty cool because Floyd County really did sort of like jumpstart my career, because it was, when I first came out here, I got to give some credit to Luke Martin there, and who's running for state senate. He actually, I saw a little blurb online where he had mentioned that like Floyd County's recount found like 2,700 votes that weren't counted the first time. And I'm like, how does that happen? That's kind of a lot of votes to just accidentally not count. So I ended up tracking him down on social media and reached out to him and was sort of like picking his brain and was like, are you the Luke Martin that was quoted in this tiny little like blog? And he's like, yeah, that's me. And I was just like, well, what happened? He's like, we don't know. We're going to be rescanning some ballots in this precinct tomorrow. And I'm like, is that open to the public? And he's like, yeah. So I just go down on to Rome, Georgia for the first time in my life. Never been there, armed with my iPhone. I go in there and I just start taking little videos and interviewing the board members, like what happened, what's going on. And I start tweeting them out on Twitter. And lo and behold, it got in the peripheral of Donald J. Trump, who was president at the time, who was still on Twitter, and he retweeted it, and Floyd County just became a huge part, like all eyes on Georgia, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it was the epitome of everything that everybody had been saying about the election.
Literally.
Every bit of that happened in Floyd County.
And we constantly talk about Senate Bill 202, which was passed in the Georgia legislature, and a lot of things that were turned into law or made illegal. All of them occurred. You can't have Democrats passing out Democrat hotlines and disguising it as we're giving food and water to the people standing in line. You can't no longer have random absentee boxes in dark corners of the library anymore. You can't, have people who are now on the ballot running as Democrats out campaigning for free and open elections. And it really kicked off, like Heather's story really kicked off some things that we have now done here in Floyd County. We were able to get our election board changed, and now we have a better election process. And so we do have a new board. We have a
the jury's still out on that one.
They're going to do great. We have a new board. We have a partisan board, so it's no longer covert, where the Democrats were basically undermining our elections.
That was a very, very welcomed changed.
And it's now just not 3 people, it's 5 people. And and that's the beautiful part about it. Like, we all know that
Heather got to know our election board pretty well.
Yeah, well, those people are gone.
A couple people out there weren't exactly fans of mine.
Yes,
Melanie Conrad.
Yeah, even one of the one of the sitting city commissioners who is now running for Congress.
Yeah, Melanie's friend.
Wendy's running for Congress.
No, Wendy Davis.
Oh wait, that's who I was thinking of. I'm sorry, I'm getting my Democrats confused.
Well, it's hard to do. They all look alike.
I don't think Melanie liked me either. Anyway.
Well, what? It
was Wendy Davis was the one that was really nasty to me when I went there. After Trump had retweeted my footage or whatever, and I went back there the next day, I overheard her telling like this local reporter, because after Trump retweeted me the next day, all kinds of media were there. It was like I walked in, and before it was just me and my iPhone. Now all of a sudden Fox is here. The local Atlanta one was there.
Mm-hmm.
Some little other affiliate, 11 Alive, right? Alive 11.
Yep.
So they were all there. But I hear Wendy Davis literally telling this reporter, "Oh, this was human error. Like, we figured it out. No big deal. Like, blah, 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 blah. It was a human error problem." And then I'm just listening like, oh, maybe she knows something I don't know. And then so I wait for her to finish her interview, Justin. And, I go over to her and I'm like, "Hey, can I interview you?" And she's like, "Well, I'm not really happy with you. I've never met you in my life." But she's like, "Well, you made my county look bad." And I'm like, "I just documented what happened, lady." And I'm like, "But you just told that reporter it was a human error issue. What evidence do you have to support that? Like, do you know something I don't know?" "Well, it's not my job to provide you with evidence." "Well, then how do you know it was human error?" And I have this all recorded, and I put this on Twitter too. But anyway, so she goes back and forth. So she's giving false statements to the media, right, about what actually happened. And then the very next story I ended up breaking, and I confirmed actually through Wendy Davis, was that Eric Thompson was one of the people scanning in the ballots. And do you remember who Eric Thompson turned out to be?
Oh yeah.
Kamala Harris's campaign photographer. Somehow, 6 months after working for Kamala Harris in the primary, photographing her at all these speaking gigs, he somehow got connected with somebody at Dominion and became a Dominion technician. Photog to Dominion technician. I mean, come on. Like, something is not right there. That is a huge conflict of interest.
Yep.
Then you add in the fact that he was sent to a Republican county that came up almost 3,000 votes short for Trump.
Yep. And he was one of the ones who scanned him in, as Heather was mentioned. So when you put it all together, it's like, how can you not see?
At what point does one plus one equal 2?
Exactly.
And they made that guy Robert Brady take the fall too.
Oh,
you know? Like, he was like the scapegoat. Nobody talked about Eric Thompson. Brad Raffensperger didn't talk about Eric Thompson. He became sort of like the Ruby Freeman, right? Everyone's like, "Where's Ruby?" I'm like, "Where's Eric?"
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because shortly after that, there was something, and Heather, you may remember this. There was a situation too, where it first started out as like 3,000, and the number changed, and when they tried to do it again, it was like 2,700, and it was asked like, how does that happen? And they were like, oh, like it was something how you put it in the machine. And then when we asked him like, what does that mean? He takes a phone call and leaves, and no one has ever seen him again. Like, he is here in Floyd County. It's like you tell us that your software recalculated the vote, and then you leave, and then we don't hear anything else from Dominion. We're just supposed to figure it out.
What's so funny, because I was in this little like room off to the side of the election building where Dominion guys were like in there troubleshooting as they were scanning, and I overheard them talking, and I may have it on a video somewhere. One of them was saying to the older one, he's just like, "They're just not adding up," and I'm thinking like, this is coming from the Dominion guys, right? That they're like, it's not working, and like, so they were having issues with the machines as they were trying to rescan all the ballots in that precinct. So it's sort of like, it goes back to Wendy Davis telling the people on the other news organizations that it was a human error. Well, this is why real journalism is so important, because that woman probably just went back to her little media studio, reported what she was told, didn't fact check it, didn't dig, you know what I mean? So people get fed like these lies and stuff every time Brad Raffensperger gives a press conference. Nobody fact checks him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's done more harm to this state than literally anybody else that I can remember in recent time.
Well,
just because he's just the negligence he's had.
Well, the hard part is it's like it took forever for everyone to believe it. You know what I mean? Like now he's like trying to do investigations and everything else, you know, when we're
campaign season.
24 days out from the primary, you know, and now you're starting to launch the investigations for a year and a half ago. Like,
no. So here's the thing. Make no mistake. Brad Raffensperger is investigating nothing about the fraud that happened. He's investigating the people trying to uncover the fraud. That's what this comes down to. And that's the only reason those subpoenas to True the Vote were issued, you know, at the request of Brad Raffensperger by the state election board. They're not looking to get to the bottom of what actually happened. They're looking to get the information that True the Vote has. Like, because they've sat on this stuff for 15 months and did absolutely nothing. And a week before 2000 Mules, the documentary, comes out that basically exposes everything they chose not to look into.
Yes.
A week before that, they issue subpoenas. Give me a break. Like I don't trust Brad Raffensperger as far as I can throw him. And if I were True the Vote, I would not give him any information whatsoever. I'd plead the fifth.
Well, I think you're right about that, and I will say the efforts that they did and that they worked on now under SB 202 could actually come to fruition in any election moving forward. We had a guy here in Floyd County. Him and I are not on the best of terms, but I will say he was extremely courageous in what he did with this. He stood up in front of the election board and presented them with True the Vote's list of names and said, look, I am challenging every single one of these voters. Under the previous law, it wasn't clear that he could do that. So our election board said, no, you're not doing that. Sorry, it's not going to happen.
And again, the most disgruntled thing, we talk about this all the time. The most disgruntled thing about that is there were names that people knew that were on that list that had already moved. And so we're like, please, like, just look at it. We know that these people do not live in the state. Their names are on the change of address forms at the post office, you know, and we just want to know, like, did their absentee ballot, did they vote absentee and did it count? Because like, this is wrong. And, you know, just from some other investigations, like we found out that there's some people who actually drove 4.5 hours from another state to vote in our elections here in Floyd County. But at the time, our previous election board didn't want to investigate it.
Oh yeah. And we've sent that information to the Secretary of State's office that they have claimed they're looking into some of these things, and hopefully they do. But
it's like it's so creepy how it feels like they use their entire position of authority to literally investigate people that come forward with actual evidence of election fraud.
Absolutely.
Because several people that I've met through my investigation in Georgia have come to me and told me, and it'll be different people that don't know each other at all, that all came forward to the Secretary of State's office with information and said they were met by investigators and then intimidated, not like, you know, taken seriously, not tried, you know, they didn't interview them to get information to follow up on leads. No, they intimidated them to basically be like, well, why are you saying this? Well, why would they do that? And making these people feel like what they're saying was falling on deaf ears. And so that's why these subpoenas to True the Vote, they want to know who the John Doe is that came forward and gave them this information. They want the John Doe's mother. From my personal experience that people have told me that they've experienced through Brad Raffensperger, I would not give them that information. Give them the cell phone pings, give them the video, which they've already been offered months ago. Governor Brian Kemp was briefed by Greg Phillips, the lead investigator, and given that information along with the GBI months ago. So they could have come to these same conclusions on their own. And if whistleblowers are not going to the Secretary of State at this point in time, there's a reason for it, because they're not trusted.
Oh well, it's hard to trust a man that's so clearly denying all the evidence that's right in front of his eyes.
And I will say one thing that's good now is, what didn't happen before, which was able to come out of this last legislative session, was that now the GBI doesn't have to wait for local government in order to investigate election fraud.
Did that get passed? I thought that got taken out of a bill.
A lot of that
got taken out.
Gutted. A lot of that bill got gutted, but that was one part that remained. The GBI does have independent investigative authority now.
Yep.
And
so did it get taken out and it got put into another bill, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. And so then the bill got put in passed?
It did. It passed the last night of session.
Yep. Sunny die.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully. I mean, hopefully they can look back, and get sort of like grandfathered in.
That's our hope too, is to try to see if they can seal, because I mean, there's still got to be some form of statute to it, so they can look back and see, if it occurred at this time, could it still apply, and not just look at everything going forward.
Yeah. Well, let's look at some sunnier things that are going on. But before we came on, Heather and I were talking a little bit about some recent news and things that are going on, and the big one being, of course, we now have a new Twitter overlord. So all hell Elon.
Not saying that, but thank God Twitter actually propels free speech again. So,
or for once, anyway.
For once.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing. I think Elon Musk, man, he had a checkmate moment, right? Yes. Where like the Twitter board has sort of like that fiduciary commitment to its shareholders, I guess, where they had to accept the offer. So really, he cornered them. This was a pretty hostile takeover.
Oh yeah.
Every time I hear that term, I just smile, just thinking, because when I hear the term hostile takeover, I imagine like somebody riding in on a horse with like a sword and just attacking a board or a company and just literally staking claim, saying this is mine.
He stopped them from even trying to, buy up more shares and make it even worse on the board. And so it was a really good play. Like you don't see financial plays like that anymore.
Well, I mean, Elon's an incredibly brilliant man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, so I was hearing that like there was this like hardcore radical leftist. I don't even like calling them radical leftists anymore. I just call them communists because that's what they are. They're not even Democrats. Like they don't. I know Democrats that aren't even that like far gone.
Yeah.
So these communists were basically tweeting out that Google and Apple had basically said that if Elon doesn't enforce hate speech and police hate speech, that they'll remove the app from their Play stores.
I would love to. I would actually love to see that happen. I would love to see them try and remove Twitter from their app stores, because
they did it to
right after that. Well, yeah.
No, I'm telling you, he'll
but I'm like, are they going to go toe to toe with a billionaire that can afford some great?
Yeah, exactly. The next day, he'll have bought an entire server farm and have launched his own.
Yeah.
So I mean,
he'll launch it right out of SpaceX. Like I mean,
he'll launch it right out of space. Oh yeah, no. I would love to. I love the fact that they're trying to threaten a man that they literally cannot threaten on that principle, just because of the fact that.
The more and more I learn about him, it's just like it's almost like a
guy crush. Because I'll admit it, it's fun.
It's different. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because it's. I think about this. Here's a guy who is the wealthiest man on the planet, but does not own a house.
Yeah.
Who owns a plane, and that's the only thing he owns. Whose girlfriend has broken up with him multiple times because he refused to get a new mattress, and she had a hole in her side of the mattress. Because the tiny house that he rents from himself through his business, he pays like I read he pays like $50,000 a year to SpaceX to rent a tiny house that he lives in when he's not couch surfing. Like he's literally a bro. Like he's like a frat bro, but
that's the
rich.
Best discussion. That's the
yes.
best
and he posts memes too, right? His meme game is like so strong when you look at like what he trolled on Twitter, and he's like, I'm gonna buy Coca-Cola next and put the cocaine back in it.
Yeah, like when he first was supposed to get on the board of Twitter, he posted the picture of him smoking weed on Joe Rogan's show, and says the next board meeting of Twitter is going to be lit. Like nobody else on the planet.
Yeah, and nobody being able to get away with it.
Yeah, literally.
All right, so here I haven't officially confirmed it, but I've heard it from several different sources. Is that Elon's also planning on coming out with a phone to basically rival the iPhone, and supposedly what I read, it was called like Model Pi, like PI, and that it's going to be compatible with like your Tesla car, so you can just like whip out your Tesla phone and open your car door with a push of a button and like do all this other stuff. And that supposedly it's going to, the network that it uses is going to be connected to all those Starlink satellites that he has been floating around in orbit right now. So he won't even need anyone else for internet.
That's awesome.
So I can
Like it would be like genius.
They are. So it was actually released last month that they are getting ready to they're working on a futuristic smartphone.
Because then at that point, so here's the beautiful part was
awesome.
You know, he got SpaceX to buy out Solar City. So now he can do solar panel battery operated with everything. He places those inside of a Tesla. So now the big worry was what happens when you run out of power, you're not near a charging station. Well, you can recharge your battery just by the sun. Then you go into the fact that he's like launched Starlink, and then everything else. So the next thing is a phone. So now he can literally operate around the world on his plane by himself with not answering to anybody. Like, I mean, he's just
I know, right? He's really making Mark Zuckerberg look like a small fry, right? Like Mark Zuckerberg's trying to be edgy by renaming Facebook Metaverse, but really the Metaverse is being built by Elon Musk. Like, Mark, you got a social media platform. Elon's got rocket ships, a phone, self-driving cars. Now he's got the social media. Like, he just won up Zuckerberg like overnight.
So I wonder whatever happened to Zuckerberg's little island that he was wanting to build to create his little utopia out there.
He did on the internet.
Well,
he probably sold it to buy out the election.
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
fair
exactly.
enough.
And you know, my favorite part, since we're talking about old Zucky, is that he went through this whole ordeal, and we went. The three of us especially went through the whole battle of like all our stuff got flagged from fact checkers and all this kind of stuff. And when it was brought to Congress's attention, he had to sit up there and say, "Well, they're not really reporting facts; they're reporting our favorite opinions." And it's like, thank you. Like we knew it wasn't fact. You're selling it as fact because you don't like it, and now you have a stronghold on the internet. And again, thank you to Elon Musk for actually coming out and stopping what's actually been happening. At least the start of it.
Absolutely. I would love to see the Democrats try and bring Elon into Congress and try to enforce their ideas of their
sounds like a
censorship on Twitter.
Sounds like a National Lampoon movie.
It really does.
I mean, it's funny watching like all the like globalists all over the globe right now, like really freak out about this, because it's not just the U.S., right? Like that meeting they had earlier today had on like the EU, it had on someone from Australia, Japan, and they're all talking like, oh no, what are we going to do? How do we stop disinformation, right? It's like, oh my God, like I'm really wondering how far they're going to go to try to stop Elon. So it's certainly going to be like an information war right now, right? Like Elon won the Twitter takeover, but what's the next battle going to be?
Yeah,
I bet they'll start looking at Section 230 again, except they're not going to amend it to where it favors free speech. They're going to amend it to where it promotes the ability for people to go on
regulate
and sue.
It.
Yeah, not just regulate it, but for them to be able to financially bankrupt these type of organizations if they don't capitulate to the
so they'll do it, and then they'll just pick and choose which tech companies,
which ones they want to come after.
I mean, that's what
and they'll give Mark Zuckerberg immunity.
Yeah,
look at what they're doing with the cake company. Still,
yeah,
they're still trying to sue this cake company because they won't bake a cake for same-sex marriages.
Yeah, and I said this in the beginning before. If they don't want us on their platform, that's their right as a company.
Yeah.
But that means that we just need to start our own.
Exactly.
You know, which is what led to
Or
our podcast.
buy one
Or
that's there.
buy it out, which is what Elon did. You know, there's other options, but I mean, like we got to combat this. You know, sometimes you got to fight fire with fire.
Exactly. Like I said, ride in on a horse.
Yeah, basically.
Oh my God, what a time to be alive! Though.
Yeah, exactly. Literal hostile takeover.
But I want to know, Heather, what have you been up to?
Oh, well, I'm in the 2000 Mules movie that's coming out. I don't know if I told you guys that. Did you know I have a little cameo in one of the biggest election movies, probably of the generation, right?
That's wow.
I didn't know you were. So I'm actually next week. I'm going to the premiere at Mar-a-Lago, so I'm going to get to meet Trump for the first time.
Oh, that's
excited about that. It's my first time being there, so super excited, you know. And I hear there's going to be a lot of people there watching this film, like Carrie Lake, who's running for governor out in Arizona, is going to be there. I think David Perdue, I heard, was going to be there. Just a lot of people that really need to like see for themselves like what happened. So it's really cool to be a part of it, like part of history, really.
Oh yeah, no, it's going to be a big event, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then,
congratulations, because that's major.
Oh yeah,
it's super cool. And I'm just super lucky to have met Catherine Engelbrecht, who's the founder of True the Vote, and Greg Phillips, the lead investigator, because they are two of the biggest patriots that I've ever met. I mean, their heart is in the right place and they're doing it for the right reasons. You know what I mean? And you come across a lot of people doing this that are just looking for their 2 minutes of fame here or there, and you know, or people spreading disinformation. Like that's the other big hurdle that I've had to go through just to find answers, right? Is there's so many people that are like trying to get you to look where you shouldn't be looking, to take your eyes off where you should be looking. So it's really been one of the craziest things I've ever experienced as a reporter, is like all of this conflicting information and having to, you know, figure out who's my circle that I'm going to trust of like trusted sources. Right. And it's just, that's why it's taken so long to get to where we're at. But Catherine Engelbrecht and Greg Phillips, like I have the utmost respect for. They are like professional, great to work with. And when you see this movie, you're just going to be blown away.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I think the nearest screening to us is going to be in Kennesaw. I believe it's Monday. So it's the first day of actual early voting here in Georgia as well, which I will say was perfectly timed for that release.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that it's already been 2 years.
It went by fast, and we were able to change a good bit, but we still have to change a lot more.
Exactly, yeah. And the big thing is driving the participation to ensure that we can actually keep and maintain what we fought so hard to get,
which is a big reality. You know, it's that time period disgruntled a lot of people, but we got to make sure that everyone gets out to the polls and votes, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to continue the fight. Because if we don't get out and flood the polls, then we really don't have a chance. You know, the Democrats have taken up the stronghold in Atlanta, and we just got to make sure that the red wall gets a little surge, and you know, that takes Northwest Georgia, Northeast Georgia, all of South Georgia, to continue to hold on to the values that we have here.
Yeah, and that's something else that no matter how you feel about what happened with 2020, and I'm saying this wholeheartedly, we all believe that it was stolen and it was rigged. But if you do not turn out and participate in the system and participate going forward in voting, anything that happens after this election cycle is your fault, because you gave up. You took your ball and you went home.
Yep.
So you have to come out, you have to participate, and you have to vote.
Yep. Not waiting up for nothing. So
let me point out, when you go out to vote, if you see anything,
absolutely,
take your phone out, record, document, ask questions, do whatever you have to do to document what's going on. And then don't send it to Brad Raffensperger. Send it to me. Follow me on social media. Send it to me, like because it's gonna fall on deaf ears. I mean, I went to both those, the Senate hearing and the hearing before the House committee, and people were testifying about all of this stuff that they had, told the Secretary of State's office. Like this one girl, Grace Lemons, that she went up to vote on election day, and was told somebody had already voted in her name on October 6th by absentee ballot. So she ended up filing a complaint with the Secretary of State's office. They opened an investigation by email, and eventually, long story short, she never got an answer. She just gets an email saying the investigation's been closed. Like, still no idea who voted in her name.
Yeah.
No answer, no nothing, right? So, like, don't send tips to the Secretary of State's office. Send it to me, or send it to True the Vote, because we'll do the investigating and put pressure on them.
Yeah, and that's a very important thing to bring up, because these people were risking. They were risking criminal offenses by committing perjury if they had lied with these affidavits on the testimony that they were giving. I mean, they were literally risking it all to tell people what they were
tell
seeing.
The truth.
Exactly. And the fact that it was just completely pushed to the side, looked over, and paid no attention to whatsoever, and ignored. It blows my mind that it was done with that.
Yeah. So, like, if you see something weird on your ballot, it doesn't look right, take a picture, take a video.
Well, we cannot advocate for committing felonies here in the state of Georgia now.
You're not allowed to take a picture of your ballot?
No. That goes back to the days of people being paid for voting, to where they would take a picture of it and then.
You mean like the ballot harvesters that took the pictures before they put them in the Dropbox?
Exactly.
Oh,
right. That would be felonious here.
I'm not a Georgia resident, so
be careful with that one.
All right. So before you get in there, though, like if there's any funny business, take a video.
Yes, and document anything that you see as soon as absolutely possible. That way, and document that you're documenting it as soon as absolutely possible. That makes it more credible once it actually comes to light and really starts to move forward with that, because you are writing down everything that you're seeing while your memory is as fresh as absolutely possible.
And if you can take a video, always remember to say the date, the time, all that in the video. So when the recording has it itself, and just like Justin was saying, you can write it down to kind of match it up just in case something does happen to the recording. But if you have the date and time of when the action took place, I'm at such and such polling station. The day is May 24th. It's 2 p.m. I saw this information. That always will help too, because then there's no way that they can go back and say that, this was fabricated by any means. So
but always remember, follow the law in regards to doing this. Do not record while you're in the polling location. You wait till you're outside the location. Do not take a picture of your ballots, regardless of what Heather was saying.
What were you gonna say, Heather?
But no, well, I was gonna say, aren't they like, so if you were to walk into your election polling location and you meet with the person that you go and they tell you like what you're gonna do or whatever, like in the case of Grace, right, where she went in there and was told someone already voted, I feel like you should legally be allowed to record that interaction. Is that not the case? If some election official is telling you someone already voted in your place and you want to document it for legal purposes, shouldn't
you have to go outside and then say, at this date and this time, I was told X, Y, and Z. Because they're usually, now in Georgia, there's a sheriff's officer or someone, I know in Floyd County,
3 or 4,
who's standing outside the door to make sure that people aren't bringing in cameras or have their phone out. Yeah,
passing out.
It's a very unique situation, But again, we'll have, because I fought for this hard. Like we will have sheriff's officers at the door of the polling station, but they wanted individuals to go pick up the ballots from the absentee boxes.
That never.
Well, maybe that's what they need to do then. If they've got sheriffs at the door and someone tells you that, you should be able to go to that sheriff and have them file a report right then and there.
Correct. But that was, similar situation. That was not possible. They had our again, previous election board had people go out and you were supposed to go in teams of 2, but they would be in the Democrats want them to be in separate cars or wear a mask in the car
Or
while they
just
went to go get it.
Democrats.
And then, they told the Republicans that, well, if you just don't want to do as we say, then you shouldn't go pick up the ballots anyway. So now you got one party, thanks to the board, one party's going out and picking up all the absentee ballots. Sheriff's officers were not going with them. It was a complete mess. But glad all that's over and we have a new process in place.
Yeah, SB 202 requires that only official members of the election board can handle. Well, excuse me, official members of the election board and federal post office workers and employees are the only people that can touch a ballot once it's sealed in an envelope. Those are the only people. Anyone outside of that would be tried or they would be brought up on felony charges. So thankfully they put a lot of protections in on that. Although one thing that has really gotten in my craw again here lately is the early tabulations or the early scannings. I will say I've spoken with several people again about this issue and the fact that they are now going to be opening up and scanning these ballots in up to, well, actually they could have started this week.
Well, so like the only question I have is, I got a lot of questions about it, but the one thing is, how do you scan it in and not count it? Because they were telling us that they were going to start the scanning early, but they wouldn't count everything till election day. I don't know how you would scan the ballots in and it not keep some kind of tally.
So I think it's because when you scan the ballot in, right, it has like this tracker that goes up, kind of like the mileage on your car, where it just goes up like one number every time it feeds the ballot through. But you can't calculate the total of like individual votes for candidates until the poll tapes are closed, which are not supposed to be done until election night. So there's these flashcards in the tabulators that hold all of the information. So the only thing they'll be able to do is keep like a running tally of how many ballots were cast, but they won't know how many for each candidate until they close the poll tapes.
Gotcha. Okay. Because
so now the question involving that is, how do we actually know that they are not doing anything with some of these flashcards?
Well, it's funny because they're not legally supposed to. And in the last election, one of the stories I just discussed a week ago, a buddy of mine did the open records request for all of the poll tapes, and they actually broke the seals on the tabulators, took the flashcards out when they weren't supposed to, and then they closed all the flashcards through like 12 tabulators. A small group of people did. And what this, like, you're supposed to close them out on their original tabulator. You're not supposed to pull them out and put them in another one, because what that does is it masks the original serial number for the first tabulator. So you can't actually figure out where the votes originally came from. So like, let me give an example. If you had a tabulator with 1,000 votes on it and you took the flashcard out, put it in a second tabulator and ran another 1,000 onto the flashcard and then closed it out on the third tabulator, there's no way to prove it went through two other tabulators. So like, it's a way of embedding votes into the flashcards. And so that's one reason why you're supposed to not remove them. And they removed 39 of them, I think. It's either 36 or 39 of them they removed in the last election. And the excuse given was that it could only hold so many ballots on each flashcard. The max was 10,000. So they were supposedly given instruction to remove them at around 5,000. I don't know how that works. But some of them were removed at 2,000, 3,000. And like, none of it adds up at all.
Mm-hmm. Which is one of the reasons why I am so heavily against the early scanning of any of these ballots.
That is interesting, because then if something technically, rabbit hole, right? Because then technically someone could go in, insert ballots, pull it out, put it into another tabulator, and then it would just be counted with all the others, just as if it was votes casted as early voting or election day. And you would never know where that additional, using that example, 1,000 votes came from. No clue.
And that's very significant because everyone is at least is predicting or is assuming this is going to be a very tight, very close race. I mean, in 2018, it was separated by just, I think it was like 30 or 40,000 votes. So if you are scanning or you're scanning these absentee ballots early, and you are essentially keeping this running total and this running tally, I can guarantee you at some point or another that that anybody within that office that is scanning, tabulating these absentee ballots, they can have a running working number of how many are where these ballots are or where the votes are going to these candidates. And for Fulton County, for them to slip in an additional couple thousand, it's not going to really be seen as or at least tell this candidate or this organization, hey, they're a couple thousand behind. So then that organization goes out and really hits the ground hard, pulling people from goodness knows where who hadn't voted yet, bussing them in and saying, hey, you got to vote right now. Just cast a provisional ballot. You might not live in this county, or you might not be registered in this county, but we'll just get you a provisional ballot. You can cast it there, and we'll cure it later, and everything will be fine that way.
Yep.
So it's a way for the parties to really, in the general, to really be able to, frankly, get a heads up on where they're standing. Or it's almost kind of like a straw poll rolling into the election.
Yeah. Well, it's also kind of, it reminds me of one of my favorite movies is Gangs of New York.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Where when it came to the elections, they would literally bring people up there, get them to vote, come back, take them to the barbershop, shave them, cut their hair, send them back in there to get another vote. And it's just guerrilla style voting.
That's what it'll lead to. I can almost guarantee you that's exactly what's going to happen.
And we always talk about in poli-sci about the 3 to 4% margin of error. And as we've gotten better as a society, we try to get away from that guerrilla style of voting, and it's scary that we're getting back to it with the more advancements and technologies that we have. But I don't know. It's a frightening thing, but that's why we got to have good people, great reporters like Heather, to stand up and make sure that things that are, when you see something, say something. Oh, that's interesting. See something, say something. And you got to get out and vote and protect the vote, because if you're not even there to vote, then you're not going to see anything going on, and then it's going to be your fault.
Absolutely. So Heather, what's next on the agenda?
What's next?
Yeah, what's next for you? What's coming down the pipeline? You got anything lined up that you're working on?
I think, let's see, I got the 2000 Mule stuff, and then the beginning of June, I'm going to Dallas I'm an ambassador for Turning Point. So it's Turning Point USA. So I'm going out there for the Young Women's Leadership Summit. There's some awesome speakers out there, some of the top conservative voices for women. So I really enjoy doing that because, having grown up in Massachusetts, right? Like there's sort of this idea that like feminism, right? In order to be a feminist, you have to be like a Democrat. So it's nice that Turning Point has like built this infrastructure of what it means to be like conservative and a woman, and that they have these events have like 10,000 people. Like it's insane how Charlie Kirk has managed to like grow his nonprofit to the size that it is and recruit all these young people, because it's really an organization that targets the younger generations, like the millennials and Gen Z and all of that, and they do a lot of like campus work. So I'm super excited about that.
It's awesome.
Turning Point's a great group, great organization. I've met a lot of really good people that have worked with them. Yeah, that's awesome.
How about you guys? What's on the agenda for both of you?
Well, as always, trying to take over the world.
I'll be out in Austin
one issue at a time.
Beginning of June for some fun things.
Can't like talk. A vacation?
No, not a vacation. I wish this was a vacation. Can't talk too much about it right now, but I'm excited. It's going to be my first time going to Texas. So
Texas is great. I mean, it's the next best state behind Georgia.
I'm excited about it.
I spent a little over a year out there.
Yeah, and then just there's some great things going on right here. Like the Rome rally is going to be going on pretty soon. I know there's District 14 is doing some really good things. We're planning to do some really good things in the near future. Once we get through primary season, take a little break, put my kayak in the water, go back to being
that?
Jamie.
What's a break?
You know what? Out of like the hundreds of like Trump rallies that I've covered, my favorite one was actually the one in Georgia where he did fireworks. And it's the only time he's ever done that. And I was like, why doesn't he do fireworks at every rally? That is like it was the greatest thing ever. I have this really cool shot of me and John Fredericks on the Meteorizer, and we're holding up our microphones, and there's this big firework behind us with like the sea of people. I mean, I don't know why he stopped doing that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Because no, you're right. That was awesome.
Yeah,
you were at that rally, right?
Oh yeah,
we had a great time over that year because it was wild. I mean, I remember getting a phone call one day, and it was like, "Hey," it was like 2:30, and they were like, "Hey, can you be back in Rome by 4? We're gonna have you on the John Frederick show." I was like, "Sure." Like, just we were doing everything we could to make sure that we got everybody out there for Trump, and then make sure everybody came out to secure their elections. We came up with ways to call people to cure their votes. It was very interesting. I will never forget one time I made a phone call to a gentleman who we knew that needed to cure his ballot, and so an investigator was actually the recipient of that phone call, and he says, "Hey, I see that there's a Jamie Palmer on Facebook who put this information out here, and then I get this voicemail, and I want to know if this is the same gentleman." And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, you know what? I'm an investigator." He said, "But I understand what you're doing, and the person that you actually call for is in a nursing home, and I still have contact with his family. I'm going to get them in touch with you because I don't even know if they knew that the person voted."
Yeah.
So then we were able to not only get that ballot cured, but like it was just interesting, because it just shows the good work that we were doing, regardless of whatever the media or the naysayers were saying.
I like how you corrected your term or your slang that you're using there, the media.
Yeah.
Because remember, we are now technically part of that swamp.
No.
Yeah, I get punched or I get I want to say slandered by the boss quite a bit. She always bring up, well, just remember you're a part of the swamp now. So
yeah, that's it.
But it's like I feel like there's a big difference between like media and then government run media, right? And that's exactly what like government run media is like Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, because there's a reason every time one of them censors something, they all censor it. Every time one of them pushes a narrative, they all push it. It's like you can tell that even though they have different names and they're different organizations, they all regurgitate the exact same stuff.
Well, there's that video clip where it's literally line for line, like I think it was like 30 or 40 different media outlets all saying the same thing.
Like their teleprompters are all written by the same person.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, it's like they sent out a mass email and then the teleprompter guy just typed it up, every single one of them. All right. This is what everybody's saying.
Subliminal messaging at its finest. Pure propaganda.
You guys ever wish you like got into like a less complicated career?
No.
That has that thought.
No. So we're involved in politics, and now we're involved in the media, and also me in the legal field, and Jamie in bureaucracy. So there's certain circles of hell that are waiting for Jamie.
I was told when I was a kid, idle hands get you in trouble, and I got in a lot of trouble as a child. So I'm glad that I have something to keep me occupied.
Yeah, but but there's things that you can do to occupy your time that's way less like controversial. Like
that's true.
We could be like a farmer, right? Think about it. Our farmers are great. Like they help feed the entire country, right?
I've done that. I'm going for the most diverse background award.
Wait, are you a farmer, Justin?
Oh yeah, we got a beef farm.
You got a what farm?
A beef farm. We raise cattle. Yeah, actually, all the
steaks.
Said
beef.
all the steaks and all the ground beef I've got stuffed in the freezer, and there came fresh from the farm. Actually, it was from a steer that we had slaughtered. His name was Vegetable.
Vegetable.
I can't believe you just said that on the air.
Vegetable. That was his name. because he was a
I think
bull.
that might be like the
He
best
edged
moment
his-
of the
edged
whole
the bull.
show.
Edged the bull. I
Oh,
taught him how to play half a game of fetch.
So does that make him a veggie burger?
Oh my god. I'm going to start calling both of you vegans now.
Hey, he had a face on it and it tasted good. Okay?
That's so funny.
Oh man.
Oh, good
Yeah,
for you.
I'm on the Matt Walsh diet now, where I'm eating as much beef as I possibly can, and this is one of the. I have got a freezer full of them out there.
It's awesome.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's we grew our own vegetables. Yeah. Oh yeah, I can put on the straw hat. I've hauled hay in the middle of the summer. I've been worried about the rains. So yeah, I can say I grew up a farmer.
And then that's
I grew up fishing. So
Now, interesting story. In high school, my nickname was Catfish. Because
catfish.
I took a bunch of guys that were a couple years older than me fishing, and we just called a bunch of massive catfish. And
I thought it was because like maybe you posted someone else's photographs on your online dating account or something.
how old does she think I am? I'm too old for online dating.
Catfishing.
That's so funny.
Oh, we caught a bunch of big catfish. So I mean, I grew up trot line fishing, noodling, the whole 9 yards.
You're familiar with that TV series though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Catfish or catfishing or whatever, where they do that.
I've had a couple of late nights where nothing else was on, and MTV looked interesting at the time, I guess.
I think it's an interesting concept, like really going down a rabbit hole now. Have y'all seen this show called 90 Day Fiance?
I think I have.
I've heard of it.
Dude,
Never seen it.
I got sucked into watching it, and it had my curiosity, so I got hooked. There are literally people who like have never seen someone, send them money for years at a time, and then they're like, in 90 days, I'm gonna get you a green card to come move to America. Or then they have this other show called 90 Days the Other Way, where like these American citizens like fall in love with this person on the internet and they go live in their country and like go get married over there. It's this one that really like blows my mind is this guy saw that this woman that he was apparently it was his fiance in the Ukraine of all places.
Is she still there?
Had multiple oh, it's cold. Had multiple profiles, all this other kind of stuff, kept sending her money. She gave him a false address. He flew over there, saw the false address. The show had to actually like find her. And then he was like, let's get married for real. And she was like, no. And he still was like, okay with it. Everybody on the show was like, what are you doing? Anyway.
Interesting thing on TV.
Catfish, 90 days. It's a weird world we live in. This is why I'd rather do this, because the other side is just kind of
exactly.
You know what I mean?
They say. I mean, you were saying getting to something that's even that's less strenuous or less crazy than politics. Look what else is out there.
Yeah,
this might be the sanest thing that we can do.
Yeah, especially now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Oof.
I can imagine like trying to go out and really trying to date somebody again.
Well, I mean,
you don't know if you're a man. You don't know if they're a man. Like what is
I used to tell my friends, I was like, I could never date a Democrat because I'd be afraid in 10 years he's gonna decide to be a woman.
Yeah. Like look at Bruce Jenner. Like, you know what I mean? Like
that's
like, I mean, like, how does that, like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't raise the family, you got a bunch of kids, and then just
won gold medals,
then you just come out of nowhere, right? And like, you got a whole show where you're the dad, then you're just like, you know what, I'm gonna be the mom too. Like, what? I don't understand. I don't get it.
Oh
I'd rather do this.
Yeah, this makes more sense.
There was like this I think it was like the Hodge twins put out a video where they were like, there was this trans girl apparently is dating this trans boy. So it's basically a heterosexual couple, but the woman's pretending to be a guy and the guy's pretending to be a woman. So are they really gay?
That's what I'm saying. Because then they're not gay. They just I was like, then just change your clothes. Like, like you don't have to like call. I don't know. You don't have to go through that whole process. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's two genders. Special. There's two genders. Like, just accept it. If you, I don't care what you do over there. If you want to wear weird things, go over there.
Just don't make me have to pay for it.
Yeah, that's it. Like, stop trying to categorize everything so much. I don't know.
Oh my God.
That's my whole argument with the left.
That and the pronoun stuff.
Oh gosh. I mean, at some point, I have a hard enough time keeping up with the he, she, or the he and the male and the female binary pronouns. I don't need any type of third, fourth, fifth. You know, the QLMNOP type deals, and I said that intentionally because we've got a listener out there that enjoys that one.
Every time I'm just sitting here thinking about, you know, Keenan and Kel. I'm a dude. He's dude. She's dude. We're all dudes.
Good burger.
Whatever.
They did not realize how
accurate that was in the 90s, right?
Fortuitous. Well, Heather, I know you're you got to get going, and I appreciate you coming on the show with us and hanging out and spending time with us. We kind of kept going. Heather was only going to stick around with us for a little bit, but we kind of tricked her into sticking around for the whole thing
because we hadn't seen you in forever.
I know.
Like, you got to come back to Georgia, at least hang out with us for a little while.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I'll be back there before you know it, before the primaries.
Awesome.
Well, I hear President Trump's probably coming back for another rally too. So
I heard that. I heard like a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, nothing.
Well, thank you
more
both for having me on, and
yes, of course.
Enjoy your veggie burgers if you have any left.
I've got quite a bit and more on the way.
All right.
We're going to have to make this kind of a regular occurrence. We're just doing a little segments with kind of musings with Mullins.
Yeah,
just runs
musings with Mullins. What's Heather up to?
All right, guys. I'll be back for sure. Thanks again for having me.
Of course, and again, thank you for coming, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, guys.
Oh, man.
And as for you all,
yes, those of you that are still left, we appreciate y'all sticking around and putting up with us again as always.
And Heather, and Heather does great work. Thank you. You know, make sure you go follow her as well as us on social media.
And I'm going to put that back up there again just for everybody to be able to see that. And if you're interested in following and finding out more information about what she's doing, those are your best avenues of resources. We've got everything up there that she does. So
yeah, even us, I still don't like to use the term journalist, but she is one of the best. And you know, I kid Justin and everybody else all the time because I say I don't talk to reporters. You can call me Marshawn Lynch because I'm just going to sit there. But Heather's one of the best. So
absolutely, and again, thank you to Heather for coming on, and thank you to y'all for watching, staying tuned, and putting up with Jamie and I on our hijinks and our antics. You definitely want to continue to like and share everything that we produce, and you're definitely going to want to subscribe because we've got some stuff that's going to be coming up in the future that you're absolutely going to want to catch and move forward with, because this is some stuff that's going to be awesome and great.
Absolutely. And just as a reminder, 24 days to the Republican primary here in Georgia and 194 until we beat Stacey Abrams.
Absolutely. And as always, thank y'all, and we'll see y'all again next week.